الله أكبر حي على الصلاة الله أكبر.
Before I go any further, I would like to rise, giving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the highest of praise and the highest of honors to his holy and divine prophet, Noble Ali. I would like to extend those honors to the forerunner, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who did warn and stir up the nations. I would like to give honors to the Moorish American Standard, the red flag with the 5-pointed greeting star in the center, representing the highest principles known to man, which is love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And I also want to acknowledge the United Mercantile Trading Banner. I want to give honors to all things Moorish. I would like to give honors to Temple number 19, the office of the Grand Governor, Lieutenant Grand Governor, the Sheik staff, the admin staff. Last certainly not least, I would like to give honors to you, the L's and Bays, and the sacred groves, because when man honors man, he honors thy Father God Allah. Islam?
Islam.
Once again, all praises are due to Allah for having us here on another holy day evening, so we may continue to build on things that make us better citizens, so that we may reason together. And I want to once again open up the dialogue, if I may, for one more moment, because the Prophet gives us an article in the Moorish literature, and the name of the article is entitled Tongues. And it's in the actual Moorish literature. For those who may not have it, please listen. For those who do have it, it's on page 25. And say Islam when you get there. Once again, also everyone, please check your phones and make sure they're on silent or vibrate for me, please.
Islam.
All right, more. So it reads, one of the most difficult things in this world to get in control of this is the human tongue. Kipling, as in Rudyard Kipling, never wrote anything more truer than when he wrote that man may hold most any post if he'll only hold his tongue. Before you set your tongue into action, get it under control. A single tongue can do more harm in the world than a battalion of soldiers. For soldiers can kill but bodies, while the tongue can kill reputations and characters. Really, it is too bad that we have no laws to curb tongues from lying and scandalizing. No doubt you all have read the story of Iago, a character in one of Shakespeare's plays. What play is that of Iago?
Othello?
It is Othello.
Islam.
When he powerfully pictured in the character of Iago the terrible consequences following the path of an evil tongue, Iago not only destroyed the reputation and pure character of Desdemona, but he finally, through Othello, killed her body. That is why I say compel your tongue to speak helpful messages, or else keep it still. Make it a rule of your life to use your tongue for high purposes only. Resolve to speak of man or woman of no other way unless you speak of good qualities of that man or woman. No one ever gained happiness out of injuring the feelings or character of someone else. No one ever failed to get happiness by speaking well of other people. So learn as if you were to live forever, live if you were to die tomorrow. Islam was? You know, that is quick to the point. Our prophet tells us in the additional laws to exercise our 5 senses. And one of those 5 senses, of course, is by way of speaking in your mouth, etc., etc. But it says exercise. So part of exercising is to practice some form of reserve. And so that means stealing your tongue, picking your battles, knowing when to speak. Most people in my circle think that I like to speak because I'm behind this rostrum. That is by far not even true. I am the most quietest person ever. But if the Spirit moves me, if Allah by way of the Prophet lays a message on my heart, and I'm permitted to express that, then I'll do so. But again, as we had said before, it's been times where someone may say or do something or that you may not like and you want to speak on it. But is it really necessary for you to speak to it? Do you, and if you do it, do you speak to that person? Or do you speak ill of that person to someone else? You know, our prophet reinforced that with Acts 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. No one makes to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister, because Allah is love. So if you have an issue with your brother or sister, just pull them aside. Say Islam more by this. Make sure you have one other person, because by Islamic law we have to have one witness. And that person can be the mediator, if anything. And you talk to them, you speak to them, Islam, or this happened, and because this happened, I feel ill about it. You know, it's not necessarily something ill that you did, it was your actions. And that's another thing that we should practice as well. We should practice to, when we speak, how we speak to that person. Because remember, as the prophet said, the spirit of man is in him. You know, and this is from the chapter of master and servant. So when we speak to that person, we're not necessarily speaking of that person, we're speaking of their actions. So your actions have proven to be, or may be perceived as malicious, because it may not be have a malicious intention at all. It may be your perception. So what is wrong with you? One mastermind once said to me, and I got you more, that it says when someone corrects you or critiques you, and you get in your feelings or you're upset about it. Why are you upset about it? Are you upset about it because they said it to you, and is what they're saying, is that correct? Or is it how it's saying it? You know what I mean? So you want to think about those things before you just fly off the handle and just say to yourself, I don't like that person. That person rubs me the wrong way. He said this to me, but is it true? You know, if it's true, then maybe you need to take a step back and consider. Islam, what?
Islam, I rise, giving the most high praise to Allah, and the highest of honors to his noble and divine prophet, Ali.
Islam.
I mean, what then, and I'm calling on lessons or whatnot, but I'm wanting to know, is there a message that the prophet gives specifically for us in speaking with the Asiatics in America that don't necessarily have the lessons, but they wronged you in a certain way? That's what I was getting ready. What I wanted to touch on lightly in the response. My first response was to this week and how things have been. It's been a very trying week. Okay. But again, my question is most simply, what does the prophet speak about, or how does he address speaking to Asiatics in the world that don't have these lessons when they have wronged you in a manner?
Specifically, the prophet mentions, see if I can remember it, and it's actually in one of our previous chapters, so give me one moment, inshallah. Islam, what?
Where exactly was the last thing you just read from the Moorish literature?
Tongues, Moorish literature. It's on page 25 in Moorish literature. Where you at? Weakness, raising. Okay, here we go. So in part, this is the first thing that comes to mind. All right. It's on chapter 43, the final instruction. It says, the tender of heart is turned from his purpose by supplications or asking. The proud is rendered more obstinate by entreaty. The sense of thine insufficiency commandeth thee to hear, but to be just, thou must hear without thy passions. All right. So that's just one of many. That's the first thing that comes into mind. All right. Because in any conversation, especially when you're about to address someone's actions, you have to be mindful again of the person that you're talking to. And you want to say, you can say peace. You can speak the language however you want to speak to them in a respectful manner. And you say, can you talk to him for a moment? And then, when you say that, you take this concept right here and you give a disclaimer. So, I want you to know I don't mean no harm or disrespect, because that puts in that when you say that personally, that lets them know that actually lowers their guard, and then on top of that, you're pulling them aside. That's one thing we have to remember as Asiatic people. We have to. There's this thing, if you make a mistake out in public, that you're supposed to be reprimanded in public. That is on a case-by-case basis based on that situation. Generally, it's in a formal setting or formal environment, like a meeting or something like that. But if it's something that someone has done to you personally, it doesn't need to be addressed out in the open. It needs to be addressed in private, because that is also a sign of respect towards that person. Because you could have easily yelled at the top of your lungs across the way, yo man, why you do this to me? That's foul, etc., etc., using all types of colorful words. Nah, bro, can I talk to you for a minute? And you look them straight in the eye. You look the sister straight in the eye, because you want to let them know that you're sincere. And you just say, look, man, what happened last week? This happened last week, and you did this. And with you doing this, this happened to me. All right. And, again, you reiterate, I'm not attacking you or nothing like that, but I just want you to know that this made me think a certain way. This made me think a certain way towards you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. So if that person has done it, then, they can either say, well, yeah, that's exactly how I felt. This is exactly what I meant to do. Or it could be something that you have done. Because then that means that you may have to take a step back and say, okay, this is where it comes in. You got to heal without your passions. That means you have to take a critique, as solid as possible, for lack of a better word. You can't be in your feelings, because it's just a critique. All they're doing is talking about your actions. And people make mistakes in their actions each and every day. It's just that right now this particular person caught it. And that's okay, because your truth and falsehood is strangely mixed. So you're going to make as perfect as the spirit of Allah may be, you're still on this plane of manifest. And you have to go about it in a certain way. And you going about it in a certain way, you're on this new plane. You may certain things look familiar to you because this is not your first time here, but you still got to feel your way around. So you're going to make mistakes. So it may be something that you did that prompted that person to do it. So now it just has to be an understanding. So then you say, okay, well, you're right, man. I did do that, and that wasn't my intention. You know what I'm saying? I'll be mindful of that moving forward. And then, admitting to your fault, even if they don't say, oh, well, man, I'm going to do the same thing. You just say, okay, well, moving forward, this is what I'll do. And then you just leave it peace like that, because at that moment, at least they know where you stand and what not to do. They have an idea of how not to disrespect you. Does anyone else have a measure that they want to add on to that? Islam.
Islam. Rising in all praise to Allah. I just want to tell the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali.
Islam.
To your question, this reminds me of in the book of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 15 through 17. It says, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his faults between you and him alone.
Right.
If he listens to you, you have gained a brother.
Right.
But if he does not listen to you, take one or two others along with you,
right,
that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses.
Right.
if he refuses to listen to them, if he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church or to the temple.
Right.
And if he refuses to listen, listen even to the church or the temple, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. So, although you spoke about people out in the chaos of the world versus somebody who's a Moorish American Muslim who may be a part of the temple.
Right.
The same still applies. You
right.
go to them, you speak to them. Hey, look, this is how I felt when First of all, brother may speak to you in private.
Right.
As he said, that allows them to give you a chance so that they can let their guard down and speak to you as brothers. And you speak to them and let them know how you felt, about a certain whatever the situation may be. And again, if they don't listen to you, then you take, you bring someone in who may be a mutual friend of both of you to discuss the matter. And again, if that doesn't work, then of course there may not be a church or a temple that you both are part of. But you've gone as far as you can to resolve that matter with that person. But if they don't take heed to that, then you sever ties with that person.
Right. And to bring it in the context of the workplace, you discuss it with them in private. And if it, again, to the brother's point, if it's not resolved in private, then you bring it to your recent supervisor and they can mediate it, and then at that point the supervisor say, okay, well, y'all don't even have to speak, I'll give this responsibility to you, this responsibility to you, and everything will be well. Hopefully, because how you speak, because that's why the prophet tells us to speak in an intelligent tone. We talked about that before, because speaking in an intelligent tone, it gives off a vibration. It gives off, again, that's the breath that we're using. Therefore, if you speak in an intelligent tone, you can be, being humbling yourself and not having hubris behind it, because people can sense that. People can sense sincerity. So that's part of speaking in an intelligent tone. So if you're speaking in an intelligent tone, the prophet says you will receive a favorable reply. So if you're not speaking in an intelligent tone, now if the prophet if you speak in an intelligent tone and you still don't get a not so favorable reply, the prophet says, do not expect evil in no one, but if someone has done you wrong, never forget it. And that goes to what the prophet said, what the brother Raphael said before. You know what I'm saying? Prophet Jesus. So
that was 16 through 17?
Matthew 18, 15 through 17.
15
right.
through 17. Okay.
Does that answer your question, brother?
It's long, it does.
Okay, good. We're gonna wait until. Does anybody else want to add, sisters? Y'all want to add something to it? Okay, it's Queen Alicia.
All of them.
Okay, and Fatima. Okay, Fatima. Praise Allah. All right, I'm horrible with names, but I can remember Fatima. Is it Fatima or Fatima? Fatima. Do you get upset when people say Fatima?
No, because my mother pronounced it Fatima.
Oh, she pronounced it Fatima. Okay. Islam, family.
Islam Morris.
Islam.
Looking mighty royal, the both of you today in the purple.
Prophet. Bar, trying to catch up with it.
Praise Allah indeed. Islam was what we were discussing before you all had came in. I had read the brief article on tongues.
Yes.
And how it's important for you to hold your tongue and only use your voice and express your thoughts when it is called for. Not to be as frivolous with your speaking, because as the prophet said, your tongue alone can destroy more than a single battalion. So we were just having an open dialogue about that. Islam. Morris, did you have anything you wanted to add on to that?
Tongues. Islam. Arise, giving all praise to Allah, the highest of honors, to his holy divine prophet, Prophet Noble Ali. Islam. Prophet Noble Ali was really big on mastering silence. And when reading the Holy Quran, the Most High talking about America, you'll see that he mentions brotherhood in there, known as the silent brotherhood. These ones, these were the ones that came in. When the brother Jesus was crucified, they was the ones that came to check on their brother. They wasn't screaming and shouting, acting a fool, and all that type of stuff. They said they marched and they counter-marched very silently, and it said they unsheathed not their swords. You know what I mean? And it said that, you know, the soldiers that was, you know, on post at the tomb fell out in fear, you know, because of the silence and the majesty that these ones who were dressed in all white came and demonstrated in silence. So silence is indeed golden. You know, there's also John the Baptist. He came down out the mountains in a form of silence and just watched the people until he was inspired to speak. You know, and then when the time came when he was actually inspired to speak, it was, you know, they were, oh, he's talking. They caught the people by surprise because he came out of his vow of silence. So silence is indeed a very powerful thing.
Indeed. To your point, if you see brothers, it's generally, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mo, but I usually see it within the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Most of your sultans or your rulers of Africa, they'll have the turban on, right? And then they'll have their mouth covered. And that in itself is an expression of a demonstration of the Silent Brotherhood. They have been initiated into the Silent Brotherhood. And you even see at certain times, you'll see a brother or the sultan, if he's taking a photo op or something, because I actually have it in my Facebook page. Ah, there you go. Islam. Right here, the brother in the white, right? He has his mouth covered. That means he's been initiated into the Silent Brotherhood. And then he'll also hold in front of him an unsheathed sword. Islam. All right. Anyone else? All is well? Okay, praise Allah. So I'm gonna have, if it pleases the Groves, I have a short measure to give that was laid on my heart, and I'll be drawing it once again from Moorish literature. And for the sake of time is valuable, I would like to just give one short verse, and it is from there I'm actually going to expound. It's a heavy expansion, and that is from the article reading the Moorish Leaders' Historical Message to America. Moorish Literature again, page 23. And I'm going to read, for those who have Moorish literature, say Islam.
Islam.
All right. All right. And it reads, and I'll be reading in part the last paragraph where it begins with "in conclusion." All right. In conclusion, I urge you to remember there is work enough for all to do in helping to build a better world. Now pay attention. The problems of life are largely social and economic. In a profound sense, they are moral and spiritual. And I'm going to stop right there. And I'm going to repeat that again. The problems of life are largely social and economic. In a profound sense, they are moral and spiritual. So, what I'm going to talk about today are the problems of life being moral and spiritual. Earlier this week, I heard a story of a couple who miraculously got a deposit in the bank of $1 million. I'm gonna say that again. It's a couple that miraculously received in their bank accounts $1 million. We don't know if they're Asiatic, we don't know if they're European, they didn't say. But what I do know is that they spent it. That's what I do know. They spent it, and they spent it. Right? And a few weeks after they spent it, they got a call from the IRS saying that there were some monies that was mistakenly placed in their account, and they would expeditiously like it back. And lo and behold, they didn't have it. So at this moment, they are serving time for a federal crime.
Wow.
Yes, taking money from the IRS is a federal crime.
Absolutely.
Why am I saying that? Well, one reason that I'm saying that is to harp on a conversation that we had in the temple quite some time ago, where the question was, or the notion was raised that the temple needs money. The temple needs money. And of course the temple needs money. It takes finance to build a nation. But our prophet said to us that it's largely economic and social. But in a more profound sense, it's more on the spiritual. So now let's think of that couple if they had spiritual and moral values or principles. What would they have done? And I thought about it. I said, well, Self, what would you have done if you would have had $1 million? I would have tracked it. I wouldn't have just spent it. That's just me personally. Anytime something miraculously occurs, you want to make sure that there's a paper trail. And you don't want to frivolously spend it, especially if you're going to spend it on things that have value. You know, they spent it on cars and going out to the movies and wilding out and, you know, splurging, if you will.
And
nothing to show for it.
It wasn't confirmed whether they were Asiatic or...
No, it wasn't confirmed.
Oh.
But we're going to talk about humanity. We're going to talk about humanity today. We're not going to talk about humanity, right?
Okay.
Islam? So, that is an issue that we have, because we think that if Kanye West said, wait till I get my money right. You know, we think that. We think if I get some ducats in my pocket, that all will be well. But the prophet said, and I'm paraphrasing, it's not in the thing that you possess it, but it's how you use them. And that comes from knowing spiritual and moral values. Islam? Let's talk about it for a minute. Spiritual and moral values. What does it mean to have spiritual and moral values? Just throw out some words. What does it mean to be spiritual? I'm spiritual. We in the conscious community of humanity like to say, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. We like to say that. What does that mean?
You recognize the connection between you and your
You
higher
recognize the connection of the divine and yourself. Is that a bad thing?
power.
Okay. Where's the breakdown with that? How do you acknowledge that connection? How do you continue to acknowledge it? Because again, we have a chapter in constancy. So the prophet gives us instructions on not to be impulsive. So if we recognize this connection with the Most High, with Father God Allah, we want it to be consistent. We don't want it to be upon accident that we receive in these blessings. It has to be a constant. We have to recognize that there's a pattern to this thing. You know, so if we recognize that there's a pattern, there's a way for us to harness for our will and the will of Allah to be one. Then the resurrection is a fact. Prosperity is a fact. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will reign supreme. Islam?
Islam.
So let's talk about the spirit. All right. Now, spirit is defined as literally the breath. That is spirit. If I'm not mistaken, for those that are well versed in Hebrew, it's like Haya, something like that.
Like, yeah.
You know, okay. I said
nuffish.
right. I said kind of. Say it again. Oh, I thought you said something. Okay. Ruh. Thank you. So we have that spirit, we have that breath. And our prophet says to us that this spirit is but a seed. It is a perfect seed. It's man. It's spirit man. Right? So us having this spirit, this perfect spirit, we have to cultivate it. Now, how does the spirit, let's do this. Let's harken back to chapter 1. Chapter 1. It says, in part, the first chapter, the bodies and the souls of men are finite things. They will change. Ye from the finite point of view, the time will come where they will be no more. But man himself is not the body nor the soul. He is a spirit and a part of Allah. Creative fate gave to man, spirit man, a soul that he might function on the plane of soul. He gave to him a body of the flesh that he might function on the plane of things made manifest. Why did creative fate give the spirit man a soul that he may function on the plane of soul? Why did creative fate give to soul a body of the flesh that he might function on the things that are made manifest? Right? So us having this spirit, that spirit has to be exercised. That spirit has to be in motion. And the way that the spirit operates is by way of the soul. Has to operate by way of the soul. The actions of the spirit are in part by the soul. Islam? Now, what's interesting about the soul is that the soul is a principle, is the element that invokes emotion, thinking, reasoning, and will. Right? Now, I use that word principle because the principle is a foundation. It's the thing or the thing on which something is occurring. So in other words, a principle is a foundation. All right? So your soul is a foundation for your actions. Let's think about this. When we read this soul in the chapter of the Moorish Holy Quran, you really can't describe what it is, but it describes what it does. And ultimately it seeks the truth. That's the purpose, for it to seek the truth. All right? And I got some things I want to lay on you real quick. All right. So another interesting thing about the soul is that in ancient times, our forefathers had a symbol of the soul, and it was the sea. So that put things in perspective, especially for one, if you look at your Quran questions, because the prophet is coming out of what? The cares of the world that's represented by what? The sea. Right? Another thing that came to mind is that, remember that famous picture your grandma used to have on the wall of Jesus walking on water? I want y'all to think about this real quick. And I'm going to read this. I'm going to read a real quick passage, and I want y'all to think about Jesus walking on water. Where you at? And by the way, soul is mentioned 65 times in the Moorish Holy Quran.
Praise Allah.
Praise Allah indeed. All right. Now, again, think about Jesus, that image of Jesus walking on water, right? Because it says, instruction, or chapter 18, we're going to start from instruction 15. Now, Jesus did not sleep within the tomb. The body is the manifest of soul, but soul is without its manifest. And in the realm of the souls of manifest, the Lord went forth and taught. So that means he walks on the plane of soul. So that meaning of Jesus walking on water, that has a more profound sense. Are y'all seeing it?
Come on now.
Y'all get what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And then we go to chapter 4, when we get the holy ministry of death. And Matheno says to John the Baptist that death is no enemy to man. It is a friend who, when the work of life is done, it cuts the cords that binds the human boat to earth,
Come on, prophet.
that it may sail to what?
Smoother seas.
Smoother seas.
Come on, Gerald. Wow.
To resolve the inconstancy of the spirit, one must master the principles of love. I'm going to say that again. To resolve the inconstancy of the spirit, one must master the principle of love. If you master the principles of love, then we know that we can search it by its faculties, because the soul is going to operate in a way. So how do you operate? The prophet says, I want to teach you to love instead of hate.
That's right.
So that means you haven't identified what love is, because your spirit is perfect. Your spirit knows what love is. Allah knows what love is because He didn't plant it in you. But how is the spirit being cultivated? Is the spirit being cultivated to where it knows what love looks like? Because we can only be what we know. So do you know love? So you have to, sometimes you have to till the soil in a way where you can start to cultivate it properly, where you can start to cultivate that spirit man, that seed, so it can grow just right. Islam.
Give us supporting demonstration cultivation.
Praise Allah.
Praise to Allah. It's not a prophet. Chapter 23, Holy Quran and More Science Temple of America, instruction 7, 23:7. The prophet says, the soil is thine own.
That's right.
Let it want not cultivation.
Right.
The seed which thou sowest, that also shalt thou reap.
Islam. Indeed. So in order for us so that spirit has to be cultivated. Once that spirit is cultivated with love, then you begin to identify that you need morals. Because you're going to identify that you're one with Allah, that you're a spirit and part of Allah. And Allah operates in a certain manner. Allah is the divine, and Allah is the all. It's the harmony with the all. So in order that you have to have certain, is ways that you maneuver, is ways that you navigate, right? So then we go into morals. And what are morals? All right? Morals or morale is associated with character, with or by right behavior. For those of you all that are taking notes, this is a degree of Buddha and Confucius. We have the 8 noble truths, right thinking, right reasoning, etc., etc. And then you have what you call the perfect man or the perfect citizen in Confucius. And what's interesting, what I appreciate about the prophet Confucius, alayhi salam, is that he says, well, what am I? Who am I? And what's interesting is that he uses the term I, but he gives the answer and saying that I am the collective. I am my mother, I'm my father, I'm my brother, I'm my sister, I'm my neighborhood, I'm my community. Go so far as to say I'm my nation. So to your point, brother Akil, you want for your brother what you want for yourself, because you are who you want your brother to be. So with that being said, you establish morals to engage properly. And those morals, just for the sake of argument and to keep it simple, we have the highest principles that are known to man, which is what? Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And we already talked about how to attain love. You have to kill off your hate. You have to recultivate what you know about love, loving yourself, so you can love others. And that will bring about a habit, a way for you to exhibit truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Because that establishes what? Fidelity, loyalty. The prophet said our problems are social and economic. But you're going to fix the social problem if you fix the spiritual and the moral problem, because you know how to interact with yourself and you know how to interact with your brothers and your sisters.
Thank you, Sheik.
And then that in itself will start to pave the way. In conclusion, I have a chart. I like drawing up charts. I'm going to express the chart to you. The spiritual established the relationship, the divine with Allah. And think about this as a hierarchy now. Your moral is the relationship with yourself once you understand the divine within you. And that again, that invokes how you interact with others. And that is what builds a strong economy, because you have trust amongst each other. I know that if I have a business with you, sister, that I know that we're going to exchange and we're going to be loyal to each other. If I do business with you, brother, and in my community, we're going to have a code. Because that's what the quality of character is. Amongst Moorish Americans, it's a code. There's a great professor by the name of Neely Fuller that always harps on us having a code. Mastermind. One of my favorite ones, I have to mention every time I mention Neely Fuller. He says, no Asiatic should be meeting unless it's to be productive. We should, at this particular state, the state of the Moorish American, we should not be getting together, not to be jiving around. It's supposed to be productive. If we're not meeting for that, then we need to continue to be separated until we think about something that we can unite upon. That's right. We have to have a code. So you're not going, that is going to come. I was speaking with a friend of mine, and she mentioned, she asked me, well, what are you talking about today? And I told her what we were talking about. And she said, well, yeah, I think that's correct, because, when I get money, I feel a certain way. And I said, again, well, that's exactly what we're talking about, sis. There's a breakdown in it, because we know how we feel. Let's do a quick exercise. All right, I want y'all to close your eyes. Sit up straight. Take a deep breath. And I want you all to think about the amount of wealth that you want. I don't know what it may be in your mind. It's for you and what you want. And now that amount of wealth that you have in your mind, that you're going to be well off, think about what you're going to do with it. I have the wealth. I have the means to do it. Now, what am I going to do with it? Now, I want you to think, give you a few more moments to think briefly. What do you need to do to get it? Or in other words, who is the person that you need to become to get to that point? Islam Moors, open your eyes. That's the journey. Prophet says we have a destiny which is not uncertain or unknown. So we already know what the end result is. So now we have to look within ourselves and think about the person that we need to be to get there. And do we want to face that journey? Do we want to go through that process? That's where the spiritual and moral stuff comes in. Because we got to get right within ourselves before we be able to get anything. What the prophet says, seek ye first the kingdom of
Heaven first.
And then
all these things will be added on.
Islam family. Any questions, thoughts, or comments? All is well, family. Praise Allah. Praise Allah.
Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah.